you guys what that looks like. But we got to do the rest of the games. Now we're going to get technically into all 65 now. Starting with the weeknight. Rice headed over to Charlotte, North Carolina to play the 49ers and won 28-17. A little bit of a close game, but it was mostly Rice ahead. I can't really make much of Charlotte, where they'll have like decent performances, but kind of just lose somewhat close. This was obviously a multiple possession loss, kind of. Rice wins again, and we'll see how that continues into the American, who's having a great start with this result here. Tulsa head over to Stillwater, Oklahoma, and beats their in-state foe, Oklahoma State, 19-12. This was another eyebrow raiser. We might have another firing here pretty soon in Mike Gundy, unfortunately, ending the second longest tenured head coaching job. Goes back to, I think, 2003, 2004, which is kind of crazy. But it is what it is if Oklahoma State cannot improve. And they continue their, I think it's now like a 11 or 12 game losing streak to FBS teams. I know they got a season, opening season win, if I'm not mistaken, but that was against an FCS school. They have like a crazy losing streak right now. Hopefully they can overcome it soon. If not, Mike Gundy is going to most likely be gone. If not soon, probably by the end of the season. Next game is Iowa versus Rutgers. The last of the weeknight games. The Hawkeyes win 38-28. I was watching this game quite a bit. For those of you who don't know about the Jersey Shore, I saw the situation there on the sideline throwing out stuff to the crowd. I totally forgot like the association with Rutgers in New Jersey. This game, a little bit surprising to see because it looked like Rutgers, not that they were going to win it, but they were going to keep it close. It wasn't until the end where Iowa pulled away there in the fourth quarter, getting an interception, capitalizing on that. And it ended up being 38-28. In that first half, it was pretty nice and tight. 21-21 going into the locker room. But Rutgers just did not have enough to overcome, and I think maybe even get their first win over Iowa ever, which is kind of crazy, as they've been in the Big Ten for a while now. And now we move into the morning games, where we did our morning show over on YT. It's a little bit like Red Zone, where we go through all of these games, show you the best highlights, all the touchdowns, or most of the touchdowns actually, and not all of them. Some of them we just cannot find, or they're just not posted. Regardless, let's get into it with Texas Tech playing Utah. Game we already talked a couple of times already on the stream, 34-10. Texas Tech runs Salt Lake City by the end of it. One that was an interesting game, 32-31. I was actually kind of happy that we got this game wrong. I think going into the week, I was like, should I go Memphis? I was kind of feeling it. Arkansas has just not been the best, to be quite honest with you. I know they have Taylor Green, but that's kind of all they have, and why they lost this game as well. Memphis has a pretty decent running game. They had a nice home run on the ground to, I think, take that lead later on, I think, and then Arkansas responded, and then Memphis came back, took back the lead, and then held Arkansas there in the red zone, and then ultimately the Razorbacks fumbled the ball, which then resulted in them losing. Memphis kneeling it out and overcoming there at home, 32-31. The American is on a real hot streak. We just talked about Tulsa beating Oklahoma State. I know that's not much to say because of how bad the Cowpokes have been, but a decent win over Arkansas just adds to the fire that they are creating. I think already people are kind of writing my prediction off that maybe the American gets two teams into the playoffs. If they have an undefeated team, wins the championship there, and then on top of that, they have a one-loss team that doesn't maybe play for that conference title and is like left out, but still has a decent resume, whether it is, USF or Tulane. I know they didn't have the prettiest of performances against Miami and then obviously Ole Miss. But let's say, Miami and the Rebels, they get into the playoffs. I think that door, there's a decent amount of it being open for, again, the American to get 2 teams. And then on top of that, Notre Dame loses another game. That just has another at-large bid available for that conversation to actually happen. This was kind of the same kind of vibe I had last season when we were looking at the format that allowed Boise State to get a bye. And I know we're kind of hanging on to this game a little too long, but we just have to talk about it because of the potential that it might have towards the end of the season. As we continue, we have Maryland versus Wisconsin. The Terps win 27-10. I was a little ticked about the scoreline rather than getting it wrong. Wisconsin is so bad. So bad. Malik Washington went off in this game. One of the best true freshman players, I think, in the country. He showed a lot of maturity and why Maryland won 27-10 there in Madison. As we continue, another game from I'm kind of okay that Syracuse won, similar to like Memphis versus Arkansas, but the scoreline was just like, what is going on with this Clemson offense? We talked about it going into the week, not only for this week, but the week before for the Georgia Tech preview. We talked about how not special Cade Klubnik is and how he's closer to his freshman form than where he's at right now. And it also looks bad for Dabo Swinney. We just talked about Mike Gundy possibly being fired pretty soon. Clemson's off to their worst start since I think around 2004. And the way Swinney has approached his building of rosters, bringing in guys in the coaching staff, looks like it's not going to be working out in the long term, unfortunately. And he might be another guy that is gone by the end of the season, which is going to be crazy. I was not expecting that whatsoever. I was not foreseeing Clemson losing more than one game, to be quite honest with you. I thought they would have dropped one in the ACC, got the job done against LSU, who also, like, that win over Clemson isn't looking so impressive now because Syracuse beat them 34-21 at home. They're in South Carolina. It's just super, super interesting and seeing what the ACC really has become. They're closer to the group of 6 rather than being part of the Power 4. They have a terrible record right now. Terrible, terrible record. And we'll see how that continues because we have some other ACC teams that lost that we'll talk about here in a few moments. Wofford headed over to Blacksburg, Virginia to play Virginia Tech. Isn't that cool? I was able to get another US flag script logo on a helmet. Virginia Tech had a really gnarly one. I was like, oh, I gotta try to do this one, and I did. And they won. They come through. They get their first win of the season. They just got rid of their head coach Brent Pry this past week with a nice bounce back win, 38-6 again against FCS Wofford. We'll see how many more wins they can get for the rest of the season, as it's still not looking good. TCU battled SMU there in Fort Worth. They reclaim the Iron Skillet against their in-city foe, it feels like, there in Dallas. Regardless, not a good outing there for SMU. Kind of bums that they're losing games so many this season. It looks like they're obviously not going to be a playoff contender unless they can do something there in the ACC, which would not be good for the Atlantic Coast Conference if they did. Regardless, TCU pulled away there in the end and again reclaimed the Iron Skillet, which won't be played for, at least never at the moment. They have no future dates scheduled hopefully the administration and athletic director can get something done to make sure that this game is played constantly and not have to do these stupid rigmaroles that kind of like other teams are going through. I think USC and Notre Dame don't have anything slated after this year, if I'm not mistaken, too. Just is what it is in the modern landscape of college football there. Louisville hosted Bowling Green. They win 40-17. Nice win there. It looked like they were struggling a bit. I think it was actually 10-7 at one point with the Falcons on top. And then Louisville pulled away towards the end of the second quarter, and then ultimately won 40-17. Miami of Ohio hosted UNLV. This was one of the big comeback games this past weekend that the comeback team actually won 41-38. The Rebels are continuing to struggle there in the first half, but they have so much talent that they're able to like bounce back, readjust, and ultimately win. I think it was an interception that kind of helped seal the deal there, and then obviously a field goal to win it. But man, you just got to be playing there better in the first half. Updog Sports Talk, one of our homies, we have him in the descriptions. He actually attended, or one of them attended the host this game, which is pretty cool. But they were a little disappointed in Miami of Ohio fans actually leaving after halftime, which is like, it was such a close game. Why would you leave? But it is what it is for Red Hawk football there. North Texas hosted, oh, actually, no, they went over to West Point to play Army. The Black Knights, this was another comeback game where they almost overcame, but came up short in overtime once again at home. They lost to Tarleton State in week 1. And here in week 4, they dropped to North Texas 45-38 there in overtime. It was one of our few overtime games. I think maybe the only, actually, yeah, it was the only overtime game here in week 4. Versus like last week, there was quite a few, and then even the week before had a decent amount. USF, talked about this game already a little bit. 63-14 over South Carolina State. The Bulls keep running even after that unfortunate loss to Miami. Tennessee beats UAB 56-24. They play Mississippi State in Starkville this upcoming week, so we'll see if the Volunteers can overcome that test. Central Michigan hosted Wagner State. Thought this game would have been, I don't want to say a little bit closer, but at least a decent fight from Wagner. But they're pretty bad. They're 0-3. 49-10 was the end result there between them and the Chippewas. As we continue to go through the list, as now this is more of the noon kickoffs, depending actually where you are in the country. Might be early afternoon. We again start with Oregon versus Oregon State. It was a minus 35 point line that was set between the Beavers and Ducks. And if I'm mathing there, Oregon did not cover. They're in the 129th meeting between the two. Florida State played Kent State. Again, Kent State is some of the best helmet gear in the country, but that's not where games are decided. They lose 66-10 against the Seminoles. Another game we are going to be talking about twice already in this stream. The game that was stolen by Oklahoma, 24-17. We'll talk about them in the top 25, both of them, as technically Oklahoma covers the line. Ole Miss played Tulane, blew out the Green Wave 45-10. Shut out Jake Retzlaff, the transfer quarterback from BYU, who's probably going to be bouncing back after that. Michigan versus Nebraska. The Wolverines win 30-27 on the road there. Cornhuskers putting up a fight, not only at the end of the game, but throughout. That was a nice Hail Mary pass to conclude the first half. I would go and check it out if you're interested in pretty cool plays. Notre Dame played Purdue in South Bend. They win 56-30. A massive weather delay. If you joined us over on the Clips channel for the watch along for Illinois versus Indiana, this game got pushed into that time slot for a little bit, and then it instantly switched over. It was kind of interesting to see like what's going to happen. I think it was our first time I've ever had that happen for any of our scheduled watch alongs, where I was like, are we even going to be able to watch this game? But ultimately we did. And ultimately, Notre Dame overcame the Boilermakers, get their first win of the season. Yeah, we had to wait till week 4 for that to happen. They play Arkansas on the road in Fayetteville this upcoming weekend, and we'll see how the Irish handle SEC country. UCF hosted North Carolina. They went at it for the first time there in the Boom House. The Black Knights win 34-9. UConn hosted Ball State in a very tight game against that MAC team, 31-25. But UConn has been pretty bad this season. They have unfortunately lost twice in overtime already. Once to Syracuse and then last week to Delaware. I thought the line was kind of interesting. They're minus 21 point favorites. They did not cover, as it was a single possession win over, again, Ball State. Next up, we have James Madison versus Liberty. 31-13 is the end result, as the Dukes win on the road against the Flames. I'm forgetting what the new trophy that these two teams are playing for. It's some kind of like Blue Ridge or something like that. JMU comes home with that, as I think this is going to be an annual game between the two for non-conference going forward, which I'm totally like that. I'm for it. Sunbelt versus Conference USA there. The Raging Cajun went on the road to Eastern Michigan and disappointed us by losing 34-31 against the Eagles. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, Eastern Michigan hasn't even won a game this year, so they get their first against the visiting UL Lafayette Raging Cajun again. They were favored by 2.5 points, and it looks like Eastern Michigan covered by 3 there. Buffalo played Troy and lose 21-17. This is one of the games that we went against the grain in terms of not picking the favorite, and it pays off. The Trojans again win 21-17. They're on the road. Toledo disappointed us by losing to Western Michigan. They were favored by 2 possessions, and not 10 point 2 possessions, 14.2 possessions. They go down and lose to the Broncos 14-13. The Rockets, what happened? But also we got to think about it. Western Michigan played North Texas down to the wire. They're a pretty solid team, also undefeated. Yeah, but it is what it is. I guess we get one wrong there in the MAC, which is not very common, especially when you pick Toledo against another MAC team. They're usually coming in clutch for us. Next up, we got North Carolina State heading over to Durham in the Tobacco Road rivalry against Duke. Unfortunately, the Blue Devils prove us wrong, winning 45-33. We went against the grain. We thought the Wolfpack, in their consistency in just making comebacks, they kind of did that in this game, but came up short, obviously, 45-33. I still think there's a decent team there in the ACC in terms of everyone else below, your Florida States, your Miamis, your Louisvilles, your Georgia Techs, I guess at the moment. That's unfortunately top tier for the Atlantic Coast Conference. But in the mix of your average team, yeah, I think they'll be all right for the rest of the year. as we got a dog barking in the background. Regardless, let's keep going to Ohio versus Gardner Webb. The Bobcats win 52-35. I think this is the favorite going into the rest of the season, at least for me, in winning the MAC conference. Played pretty decent against the Buckeyes last week. Obviously, you got the win against West Virginia at home, but also took Rutgers to the wire. So they're playing power conference teams pretty well. Just got to be able to, finish the job throughout the rest of the season, as they'll be, again, heavy favorites for here to win the Mid-American. Northern Illinois headed over to Starkville to play Mississippi State. The Bulldogs win 38-10. Thought that would have been a little bit more, but maybe Jeff Lebby held his dogs back a little bit. They will be playing Tennessee here in week 5. That's going to be an interesting one because Mississippi State is undefeated. They had that nice early season win against Arizona State already. We'll see how they do against another ranked team and maybe win that somehow, some way, because they're 4-0 for the first time since 2014. That was back when Dak Prescott was the quarterback, I believe, for Mississippi State. Kind of crazy. Georgia Tech played Temple and again won 45-24. We talked about that in the ring section. Yellow Jackets getting the job done there. They continue to roll. And we keep rolling through the rest of our slides, as I think we only have a couple more, if I'm not mistaken. So let's continue with Idaho versus San Jose State. This was kind of the row of games where I was like really worried to where an FCS team would get the victory. This past week, all of the FBS teams passed their tests against their lower division opponent. The one that was super close was, again, the one that we're talking about, San Jose State versus Idaho. The Spartans win 31-28, but the Vandals, just like in that game against Washington State earlier in the year, they made it really nice and tight for the Battle of Palouse. For the battle there in San Jose State, they also made it close. I think they were up early multiple times. It was a nice back and forth, but the Spartans having enough talent there to overcome the Vandals again, 31-28. Kansas hosted West Virginia. The Mountaineers came into Lawrence and lose 41-10. Jalen Daniels going off. That running game looks like it's pretty solid. And it also bouncing back now multiple weeks since the loss to Missouri. Was that last week? Regardless, it was weeks ago now. Jayhawks, they might be that like one loss team in the Big 12 that ruins kind of their chances in getting multiple teams. We were kind of talking about that in the streams, especially for the American. They just need to have teams not beat their undefeated ones so that by the end of the season, they have like records that are going to be, debatable and getting, again, a team there in the playoffs. Delaware versus FIU, one that we picked, not the favorite. The Blue Hens, yeah, I mean, obviously they won, but like I was a little surprised that like this pick went off. I'm trying to look for the line. That's why I kind of paused there for a second. The line was -4.5 to start the week in favor of the Golden Panthers. Ended up being -6 in and around kickoff. Yeah, it was not Dale. I saw a funny post from the Delaware account. They rewrote, because it's 305, the area code for FIU. They rewrote their area code, what I think is like 206 or 306 or something like that. You gotta love it. Delaware keeps on winning here in the FBS as they're one of the new boys here at this level, and again get the win for the, I think, first Conference USA win of the season for them as well, 38-16 over FIU. Next up we have Kennesaw State hosting Arkansas State. The Red Wolves lose to the Owls 28-21 on the road. Just a disappointing game there for us. We thought Arkansas State, especially playing Iowa State the week before, close. It's like there's no way the Owls have a chance, and well, they definitely did, because they won only by one possession. It is what it is. They did not obviously cover. There was minus 4.5 points going into this for the Red Wolves as they go down and lose. And I have a constant barking going on. I might have to go check the dog, but we'll see what happens. Akron played Duquette. 51-7 is the end result there. I was a little worried that the Zips were not going to be able to get the job done for some reason, because they've just been bad. Also, they opened up the first 2 weeks without scoring. Here, the score 51. I was a little surprised with the scoreline. We continue. Missouri beats South Carolina 29-20. Tigers improve, continue to be undefeated, and shutting down Sellers. They got to him quite a bit. We keep moving to Jacksonville State hosting Murray State. The Gamecocks win 45-10. I wasn't too worried about this game, as the Gamecocks doing us right. Marshall headed over to Middle Tennessee State and won 42-28. This was close margin, especially with the Thundering Herd not too good so far this season. They already lost to a Conference USA team in Missouri State at home. I was a little worried that Middle Tennessee State would do us dirty again last week. I'm trying to remember. I think it was like Nevada that they played and won there in Reno. I was like, oh man, I hope we don't get the same kind of case here with the Thundering Herd on the road. Already again lost to Missouri State. But they win 42-28. Not too bad, not too bad. As we continue, Missouri State hosted Tennessee Martin, 42-10 there. And Missouri State looking all right, looking all right. Western Kentucky hosted Nevada. The Hilltoppers win 31-16 there in Bowling Green. They were minus 11.5 point favorites. They more than covered against the struggling Reno Wolfpack. Boise State headed over to the Air Force Academy to play the Falcons. A little bit of a slugfest there in the beginning for my Broncos, because we all know there's a reason why the room is blue, guys, and you see my little piece of blue turf there. Again, the Boise State Broncos win 49-37. Dylan Riley went off in this game. He had, I think, over 300 yards. No, he only had 171, but it felt like he had over 300. And on top of that, he had 5 rushing touchdowns. As we keep moving, we have Georgia Southern playing Maine. They win 45-17 over the Bears. And the Eagles continue to win after a rough 2 opening weeks against USC and Fresno State. The final game on the slide, we have Coastal Carolina versus South Alabama. The Chandlers win 38-20 over the Jags. Disappointing game. We thought still Coastal Carolina off to a terrible start to the season. They have not looked like themselves. Then on top of that, South Alabama, they played Tulane close. They had an all right game against Auburn the week before, but it doesn't pay off for us. South Alabama was favored by 14.5 points going into that game. Obviously, they didn't cover, but they lose by multiple possessions. Just super disappointing that we didn't get that one right. And I didn't even look at the line before picking South Alabama. I was picking South Alabama off of, again, the Auburn game that they obviously lost in, but it was a decent performance. And then the week before against Tulane, only losing by like less than 2. Oh no, it was around 3 points. I think that was the difference between them and the Green Wave. But it is what it is. We kind of miss some. You kind of lose some. As we have a couple more slides. Oh no, this is, I think. No, we have the Hawaii Fresno State. I was gonna say That's the nightcap one. This is the late afternoon ones. Maybe it's a nightcap depending on where you are in the country. We have Miami playing Florida there at Hard Rock. The Hurricanes more than cover. Just a little disappointed that it wasn't a little bit more than what I think it should be. Carson Beck didn't have the best night, but it is what it is on that. We'll see how, again, the Hurricanes handle Virginia on Friday, and then they'll have Florida State the week after. Next up, we have Indiana playing Illinois in a massive blowout win for the Hoosiers, completely destroying anything Illinois had going. On top of that, the Fighting Alumni could not run the ball. That was another frustrating thing when watching that game. And it was so bad that we switched over the stream to Arizona State and Baylor. So midstream, I was kind of coming up with improvised graphics for that game. As if you tune in, we have like a decent setup there. Georgia State headed over to Nashville to play Vanderbilt. They lose 70-21. The Commodores get their revenge there. Washington played Washington State in the 117th meeting between the two. And the Huskies come home with the Apple Cup with, again, 59-24 win over the Cougs. Stanford headed to Charlottesville, played Virginia, and lose 48-20. The Cavaliers off to one of the best starts in recent memory, to be quite honest with you. And we'll see how they do for the rest of the season. Again, they have Florida State later this week. I think did I say Miami? I might have misspoke there. Miami does not play Virginia later this week. Regardless, Arizona State played Baylor in Waco and win 27-24. It was a little bit of like mostly of a back and forth. Then the Sun Devils pulled away a little bit, and then Baylor equalized it. Michael Trigg, their tight end, big body, coming in clutch on multiple drives. I think he had 2 touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken. But Arizona State kind of timed it right, positioned themselves with a field goal attempt to ultimately win 27-24 there on the road. And I think on top of that, Baylor was the favorite, so we went against the grain there, and ultimately came out on top. BYU played East Carolina and won 34-13. And the Pirates, who are pretty decent in run defense, held off as best they could, but again, they lose 34-13 at home against a very, very good BYU team. Southern Miss, well, they missed against Louisiana Tech and lose 30-20. One where we went against the grain, didn't pay off. It is what it is. We thought Southern Miss, they've been having some decent performances against some alright teams. But also Louisiana Tech has as well. We just thought the new regime that came over from Marshall, that won the Sun Belt, would have got the job done against the Bulldogs. Southeastern Louisiana played Louisiana Tech, or not Louisiana Tech, Louisiana State, and that's LSU. 56-10 is the end result there for the Bayou Bengals. They continue to win. They'll have Ole Miss this upcoming weekend. We have the Nightcap Games. That's Sam Houston State versus Texas. The Longhorns win 55-0. One of the few shutouts that we had this past weekend. They more than covered. They were favored by 39.5 points. Going into the week, I was talking about this game for sure being covered. Yeah, 55 points definitely covers 39.5. Utah State played McNeese, and the Aggies win 48-7 there at home in Logan. Texas State hosted Nichols. They win 35-3 as they have a nice bounce back win after losing to Arizona State there in Tempe. UM Monroe headed over to El Paso, Texas to play UTEP. They beat the Miners 31-25. There was quite a few games where the favorite team didn't win And it looks like those games are the ones we missed, I think, quite a bit here in week 4. This is one of them. The Warhawks win 31-25. I was a little surprised there, as UL Monroe isn't a very good team, but I guess UTEP not much better. One where I believe, no, we didn't go against the grain on this one. Actually, the Roadrunners were favored, but not by much, and they didn't win by much. 17-16 over Colorado State. The Rams, if I'm not mistaken, had to switch up quarterbacks because of that situation. That's why UTSA comes out on top. Colorado hosted Wyoming. They beat the Cowboys 37-20. Not really hyped up on the Boulder program. They play BYU. That'll be another test for, again, Primetime and his Puffs. We'll see if they can overcome it, as they're going to be hosting the Provo Cougs there this upcoming weekend. Cal went down to San Diego and got Aztec 34-2. A big old goose egg that ran down that pyramid steps. This was an absolute surprise of the week, to be quite honest with you. I know we saw the big score line between Illinois and Indiana. Well, this one was even bigger. Was not expecting no points. Was not expecting a blowout. Especially San Diego State has not been good so far this year. They lost to Washington State, who's not a very good team. You would expect Cal to have done a better job. I think they started off this game with like a 20-play drive that ended on downs. I think that time with a missed field goal were the only opportunities for points. And yeah, this was a super surprising loss this week. Cal, if I'm not mistaken, were favored by 12 points. Well, they didn't even score a single one. And again, lose to San Diego State 34-0. It's another ACC loss there here so far in 2025. That conference, pretty much garbage. Michigan State went over to Southern California to play USC and lose 45-31. If you don't know, it's kind of tradition where we just pick against USC, and it's all right. We'll take the L on it. It would have been nice if Michigan State could have put up a decent game. They were just behind in this throughout. Aiden Childs kind of coming home. He's from Downey, California, which is not too far from the Coliseum, and didn't overcome the Trojans. They'll have their first big test this upcoming weekend against Illinois there in Champaign. And we'll see if they can blow out the Fighting Illini. Fresno State versus Hawaii is the final game out of all 65 here for week 4. The Fresno State Bulldogs win 23-21, a very, very close affair. Hawaii ended up getting that somewhat game-tying drive, but came up short in the 2-point conversion. That's why it ended up being 23-21. You gotta love Micah Alejandro, who was out the last couple of weeks for the Rainbow Warriors, but unfortunately come up short against their rival Fresno State. If I'm not mistaken, they play for a golden screwdriver that was thrown at, I'm forgetting the head coach. It might have been, I don't think it was Pat Hill. It might have been Jones, the former head coach of Hawaii back when like Colt Brennan was there. RIP. Regardless, Fresno State wins the final matchup between the two in conference. Going forward, if they do play each other, it will be a non-conference contest. And again, here were the bye teams for this past weekend that didn't participate.